Well, hello friends, and thanks for joining me today. Let's look at a jigsaw and how to use it safely and productively. Hey friends, so a jigsaw is a saw that takes a blade and moves it back and forth this way, perpendicular to the base or the table. This used to be called a saber saw. They're not really called a saber saw much anymore, but a lot of people that grew up with them still may call them a saber saw, but I call it a jigsaw. This one is made by Bosch. It's a really nice jigsaw. I really like the fact that it has a quick detach for the blade. You put the blade between these rollers facing away, with the teeth facing away so that you can go forward with it. You put it in between the rollers, you line it up into the notch right in there, you slide it in, and then this little lever locks that in. So in order to change the blade, I can't just pull this out. I have to take that red little button, move it up, and then I can release that blade. And then when I want to put a new one in, line it up in those rollers, slide it in, and it locks in place. Really nice. This one has a function where it has an orbital function. So instead of just going straight up and down, it will go in an orbit a little bit. So you can have a different setting. If you want it to go just a little bit, or if you want it to go a lot, it can do that. We can also change the angle that we cut at by changing this base. We can rotate it. The way we do that is by changing, there's a set screw in here that we loosen that up, and then we can change it. Now most of the time, the Allen wrench for that is stored here. This gets used a lot, and so it's obviously been left out. I got a drawer in the tool room full of Allen wrenches that we can use. So you would just loosen this up, and then you could move this base however you saw fit. Now when using a jigsaw, we have to make sure that we have nothing that's going to impede the blade. I obviously couldn't cut right here because this is not up and it would go into this table. So what I can do is I can go off if I want to, and I could clamp this work down, or I can hold it or whatnot, and then I could do my cutting. Or what I can do is I could set it up on blocks and then clamp it down so I'm not going into my table. So that will depend also on the length of your blade. If you have a smaller blade, you wouldn't need to lift it up so much, but if you have a longer blade that's gonna cut some thick material, you need to probably make sure you have it up quite a bit, or what I prefer when you cut off of the table and you don't have to worry about running into the table. So the other things to consider, this one has a button on here where if you had to do a lot of cutting and you didn't want to keep your finger on the trigger, you could pull the trigger and then you could lock that into place and it would lock the trigger in. So you could just keep going and you wouldn't have to always have your finger on the trigger. The other thing it has is it has the speed of the blade. You can make it faster by rotating this little knob here, and that will make the speed of the blade go faster or slower depending on the lumber you're cutting and depending on the finish of the cut that you want. So I usually run it in the first orbital setting or the 0 setting, and then I also go slow with my travel speed, especially on thick stuff. If you go fast, if you try to push it really fast, that blade has a tendency to kind of angle. We don't want that. We want a straight up and down cut. So go slow, take your time. You will be watching through here, and you can be watching the blade as it cuts, looking down at the blade, and then go nice and slow as you make your cut. So let's go ahead and make a cut here. So we're ready to go make a cut. I always like to protect my eyes and my ears. This isn't too loud, but the constant noise is really not good for hearing. So it's always best to err on the side of safety and protect your hearing. So I'm gonna go ahead and put muffs on, make sure I got my glasses on. I'm gonna make a cut, and then we'll see how this turns out. All right, friends, so the cut turned out pretty good. As you can see, when I got to the edge, it's kind of hard to get that cut started in. Sometimes you have to, if you're going this way, you have to kind of go into the wood again to get back on your line, which that's all part of it. So when you use this, make sure to protect your eyes. You can see all that dust flying around. Protect your eyesight and then protect your hearing. Make sure your table, your base is flat against the lumber. You don't want to tip it. You want to use that angle. If you need an angle, move your base. Don't let this thing go back and forth, and make sure you're pressing down so it's not going to jump around on you. So that's it, folks. The jigsaw is a really nice, useful tool, super handy for so many projects. Make sure you keep your fingers away from the blade, and you should be just fine. And remember to work hard, folks, because hard work is its own reward. And thanks for watching.